And we're live, finally. Thank you for joining me on episode 2 on True Podcast with me, Paul Candelent. Now, our second guest today is from the entertainment industry, well, TV and film. And it's the kind of guy that when he posts on social media, everyone listens. Hence why I've got him on the podcast today. So when I talk about everyone, we're talking about ADs, actors, SAs alike, and even casting agencies. Now, I don't know about you, but not many people ring me and ask me to stop posting certain things because you have that much of an influence. So let me welcome the one and only Pierre fucking Bergman.
Hello.
How you doing, sir?
Good to see you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Nice to be out of the house.
Yeah, it's finally on a sunny day.
Yeah.
I was driving because my commute's from Birmingham every time I come to the studio. So I was expecting the M1 to be absolutely rammed like a car park and it'd be hammering it down with rain. And you know what? It's been sunny. I've come straight the way through to the studio. We had a talk off air in the car park, waiting to get into the studio, and basically we should have kept the cameras rolling there because we had a great conversation. And the reason I wanted to get you on the podcast is you seem to have quite a following, and your points of view seem to hold not only a lot of weight but answers to a lot of questions that people want to ask you. So now we've got you on the podcast. Before we get to all that, with all my guests, I'd like to take you back back to the very start, where it all happened and where it all started for Peter Bergman.
What, right to the beginning?
Right to the start,
Right
about
to
your
the
childhood.
How long is this podcast?
A couple of hours, however long you want it to be, really.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, come from immigrant family. They came over just before the war. So I was born in Pimlico by the river, all bomb sites and dust. And then when I was about 5, they moved to North London, where I spent most of my life. And unimpressive school life.
Aren't we all?
So unimpressive.
If I was to have gone the direction that my school, so I wasn't very academic. In fact, I was dyslexic, so I was bottom class in everything. So academically, I didn't really excel in anything. When it comes to sports day, though, it was completely different because I went into football, so I excelled there. But I don't think schools, and it has never been set for life. You know, you're ready for life as after school.
No, you listen. You ping off kind of how you were formed in school, but I mean, I was the opposite. I was fairly academic, but incredibly lazy, and hated it, and had no respect for the school. And it was strange because I was in a working class area with immigrant parents who had accents, so they stuck me in front of the BBC, in front of the radio. So I ended up with a fairly BBC English accent in a working class school. So I was posh. Well, I wasn't posh at all.
I would love your accent because I have to work on an RP accent. I'm from Birmingham, as you could probably tell. And I remember when I first heard myself on camera and do I really sound that bad? So I had to work on it. But when not only have you got a good way, with obviously the way you sound, the way you speak, but the words you use, especially when you post on social media, and which we will get to later on in the conversation. But it sort of makes sense to the person that I know today. Yeah. So academically, you was.
I was fine. You know, I kind of sailed through, worked, 2 days before exams and got through the exams, and then shot myself in the foot when they brought in the 11 plus, because they decided that halfway through the year that they wouldn't give us an 11 plus. They would judge us on our year's work, which was non-existent. I hadn't done any work. So I ended up in the sink school, which, it reinforced my loathing of school. So I got out as soon as I possibly could and worked for an advertising agency, which was awful, and got the sack because I was arrogant enough. The managing director called me in and said, you've got a bit of an issue with your line manager. And I said, well, he's an idiot. And the managing director said, yeah, he's an idiot, but you can't tell him he's an idiot. And I said, well, what can I do? I can do his job twice as well as he can. I don't think this job is for you.
Do you know, I sometimes that's the problem I get is my mouth suddenly engages quicker than my brain.
It's not
do you know?
bright.
So yeah, it trips me up. But I can't. There's two things I can't stand is being around is lunacy and stupidity, and you can't teach either or because it is what it is. So I tend to either say as it is or get up and walk away.
Yeah, well, when you're 18, you need to keep your mouth shut if you want to progress. So it transpired my stepfather had a warehouse in Camden.an, and he wholesaled books out of the warehouse. And as it was in Camden.an then, in the early 60s, it was a very working class neighbourhood, and the shop fronts were not used. Most of the shops, the Edwardian terraces were used as warehouses, and they just put newspaper at the front of the original shop windows. So I said to him, listen, why don't I open a bookshop? You carry on with the wholesale business. We'll open up the shop front and I'll sell books because I love books. That's the one passion I had was literature, which has followed through, obviously.
Yeah, makes sense.
So that's what I did. And we opened the shop, and everybody said, you're mad, because Camden was very working class, Greek, Irish.
Completely different to obviously, of course, what it is today.
But the shop took off.
Brilliant.
And it took off to the point where we gave up the wholesale business, knocked the shops through, and it became a very successful business.
Okay.
So that's what I did for 40 years. And it was Camden, as you know, changed fundamentally. And it was a lot of authors moved in, a lot of writers, a lot of media people. So my shop was always busy. We had little, we always had celebrities in there. So it was great. It was great fun for 40 years. And then it was enough. Amazon was coming in. It was getting a bit tough. Supermarkets were selling books cheaper than I could even buy them.
Do you know that I get worried, especially in the industry we're in, how quickly the world is moving.
Oh,
not only technology-wise, but everything else that moves with it. It's life itself. The way you've got to quickly adapt. Hence why we've started the podcast. I wanted to try and create a platform where we could all equally learn, where there's no pressure, where there's no censorship, where there's nothing like that. We can come in, speak the truth through podcasts and get to know fellow people, get some positivity out there. Most of all, if we can both learn from a good, decent conversation, something I may have where you can't have nowadays, without causing an argument or being labelled a bigot or something like that, which I normally am, or I'm labelled something. So it's just quickly how quickly the world moves on. And
MK Cypher Films is an independent production company based in Enfield, London, UK. We produce documentaries, short feature films, social media videos, and provide photography studio space for weddings, christenings, and corporate videos.
With your bookstore, I bet you've seen genres of people coming in and going, decades of people coming and going, different sorts of people.
Oh, yeah, listen, fashion's changed.
And it's a shame. It's a shame that technology is one of the reasons why all that come to.
Well, you know what? I was surprised because when I saw Kindle coming in and Amazon coming in, I thought this is definitely the end of bookshops now. Physical bookshops will disappear, and it didn't happen as it happens. And
Kindle really didn't take off, did it? I don't think.
Well, there is no substitute for a book.
Amen.
Kindle's portable, but there's something physical, there's something indefinable about a book that you cannot get on a video. It doesn't work. But it's convenient. I used to take a suitcase full of books on holiday, and I'd take a Kindle. I've gone to the dark side.
Yeah. Whoops. Well, we had a pastor on last week, last Thursday. I think it was last Thursday, and when he takes a sermon, he says there's nothing better than listening to the pages rustling when they say flick to chapter.
Nothing.
And he loves the sound of people getting the Bibles out and flicking through pages rather than getting the phones out and flick. He said there's just something about a book. With me being dyslexic, nothing worse than picking up a book and thinking, oh, I've got to read this. It's going to take me ages. Yeah.
You see what's happened with,
Well, if I
with
can
new
listen to it,
technology.
if I can listen to it, it's better for me. So I can visualize it as well.
What's happened with new technology now is you get social media, you get instant gratification because you get likes and you get, people are instantly engaged, which didn't exist. And it's quite interesting because you'll notice a lot of writers who've started on social media and gone into books because they realised there was a market there. They realised people enjoy it. There's no way of knowing in the past until you actually produce the finished book if anybody's going to read it. With social media, some people, the guy who wrote Wool, which became what's that series called? Mechanical was the code word.
Oh, Silo?
Yes.
Silo.
Well, he started.
Sky One, isn't it?
Yeah, he started just writing little paragraphs.
I couldn't make entertain of that, could you?
Yeah, it's very good.
Is it really?
Give
I
it
didn't
time.
watch it.
Yeah, you give it time. It's excellent.
Okay.
It's really good.
I didn't.
Apple.
Oddly enough, that's where I met Simon Akinwumney. He's normally part of the team, but he's not here today. And I didn't even get used on that day. We were just talking around. And he's a huge guy, huge set guy, and he's got a beautiful laugh. He's got a big laugh. So anytime you can hear, you know where he is. And he's a gentle giant, big heart, and we've become really good friends. And it was just being on that set on that day.
Yeah, you did.
It was a big crowd day, as it is, and we got talking. And I mentioned to him that I was doing a few things, and he happened to mention to me that he'd sold these cars and bought all this camera equipment and hadn't used it yet and wanted to start a film. And I was like, okay, so I've got all these things going off in my head. And then I put it to him what we were doing for Battle for a Kingdom. And that's how we come on board. And he used the cameras, and the rest was what you see today.
With our industry is, if you're an extra, supporting artiste.
I was just going to say.
Sorry, they get shut down for being called extras now. We're extras, okay?
Extras.
But the people in the holding area in any film have all had lives. Most people haven't done this all their lives. Most people who have been extras, who are extras, have had lives. And a lot of them had interesting lives. So you meet a cross-section of people in a holding area you would never meet
Of course you wouldn't.
normally.
No.
And I've met people so far out of my comfort zone that I would not normally socialise with and realise these are great people.
And like this morning, the key to this game is waiting around, or you keep waiting around all day and not even get used. So there's a lot of time to film, to talk, to get to know people. And much like yourself, a lot of people listen to what you've got to say because not only the words you use, but the way you write stories on.
You're very kind, but I'm not. I've met some people who have. I mean, I've been doing it for just over a decade, I think. There are people who've been doing it for 30 years, and they've got stories that will make your hair curl, and told much better than I. They just don't write it down.
It's like if we can take you back to the 60s, with the bookstoring, is it Camden?
Yeah.
How did that start, and what was the kind of literature you started with? Because I can imagine, especially with my dad, because he was born in Hillingdon, at Holly Hospital over in Hayes, and they didn't really have anything. A place called Apple Tree Avenue. So how did it all start for you?
I tell you what inspired me. Very early, I think late 60s, I went to California, and there was a bookshop on the beach there, and it was such a funky place. I mean, it's such fun.
California 60s, oh wow.
And full of new literature and old literature, and complete. And that kind of inspired me to start it in Camden. So
that must have been quite an interesting time to be in California at the time in the 60s.
Yeah, I went to
surfing
Venice
the Beach Boys, and
yeah.
I bet it was absolutely kicking.
Well, it was. I mean, I was also playing in bands then. You know, as everybody was in London in the 60s. So
swinging sixes.
swinging 60s.
Yep.
So part of my motivation of going to California was there was some interesting stuff coming out of there, which I wanted to absorb. So I kind of ran the two side by side. You know, my day job was the shop. My evening job was playing in bands, and then I had a kind of morphed into a band which was a half Jamaican band, half white band, which in the late 60s in London, there were a few bands like that, not too many, but it was an education. It was an education in London in the 60s, and how the racial character of London was changing. There was much more inclusivity, but it was still tough.
I bet it was.
I got being in a band, you know, a band that's with mixed races. We got some shit. I mean, really, we were pushed into the back door rather than the front door in some places because they didn't want, you know, the black guys to come in the back. And you know, I'm a middle class guy from North London. I knew nothing of it.
Hey, that's me.
You know,
I don't. Again, it's something I don't really get. You know,
no.
For me, I didn't see anything like that. It is people. They are who they are. You know.
Oh, listen, there was
And,
no question. I was taking it all on board.
And like you say, with the SA World, you get to know and click with all sorts of people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
People that you wouldn't necessarily. And the fact that you're all in a band brings you closer together anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, it was great.
I bet it must have been great. I mean, I've never played in a band. I've never had a lyrical bone in my body. Really haven't. I could just about hold my own in a podcast and on the set, but it must have been awesome to be in a band, especially in California. And
Well,
all the
London
rest
was
of it.
crazy because you know, people didn't join bands to get famous then. You joined bands because it was fun, and every pub had a live band, and we used to meet in Soho Square because all the agents.
Well, that's what London was, though, isn't it? Live
Yeah.
bands in pubs. And
Oh, it was all live.
that's how a lot of
band.
the 70s and 60s bands got discovered, was in certain pubs where they used to go to. And
Oh,
when
it's
you
a
hear
stable.
some of the bands that used to go, especially in Birmingham, where you used to, I forget the pub, I'm not going to say it, I'll probably get it wrong anyway, where Black Sabbath and all the bands used to go, and you think,
Great.
wow. What a time that must have been in Birmingham. Obviously, the pubs aren't there anymore, it's given way to the boring. But you don't get that now.
You don't.
'cause
It
you
was a
haven't got the
shame.
pubs for
Listen,
one.
but you know, when I say it was great, it was wonderful. Just an old man reminiscing. It sounds like, but there were more music venues, and you also, I mean, now you pay your dues on YouTube, then you pay your dues playing in pubs. It's a different dynamic completely.
100%. I've got to agree on that, because I've started working with Beta Squad. People have heard of them. I'd never heard of them before I started working with them. And when I was introduced to the world of YouTube, I've been watching it for a while. Different podcasts like Joe Rogan, Joe Kirby, James English, and people like that. Different varieties of podcasts. I never thought even 2 years ago that I'd be watching podcasts, but it's just sort of clicked. I can't watch the MSN because you can't trust half of what you read anyway or what you hear. It's all there for a reason. So I generally go to, it's like the off-road media,
Yeah.
where you can actually get the truth,
Yeah.
or a reasonable amount of truth, and the rest, use your own intelligence and make up what you
I
want.
think there should be some kind of an apprenticeship to explain to people that what you see is not necessarily what is
it
real.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, working in the film industry, when you see things back, you think, oh, wow.
Yeah, well, that's how
Wow,
it
is that how it
happened,
looks? Because at the time, you're just covered by blue cloth or green screen.
Yeah.
You don't really see what is actually going on until you watch it back and you think, wow, okay, never trust a telly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was your bookstore, and that lasted, you said, for 40 years. So
40 years, yeah.
that was a great success.
It was.
Was that a family-run business?
Well, initially it started, and then they dropped out. I mean, as I say, my
So
stepfather
you must have
had
done like.
he got old. Yeah, it was the right place at the right time. I mean, we had it became kind of a place for people to meet as well, particularly writers, because they all lived around there. So we'll meet in the bookshop. So they used to have a chat in the back and have a cup of coffee and then buy a few books. And writers buy a lot of books.
Okay.
Thank God. And they kept me afloat. And they were very loyal, even when you know, there was a thing called the Net Book Agreement, which kept books at the same price wherever you bought them. And then that was taken away, and that was the end of the independent bookshop, because you'd go to Tesco's and get the book for half price.
I mean, look at the big Waterstones in Birmingham.
Yeah.
You know, you're not going to compete with that.
No,
You've got
we couldn't
4 or
compete.
5 floors full of whatever you want to read. And
Camden had 6 bookshops when I closed mine. It now hasn't got a single bookshop.
I was just going to say, is your shop
No, it's
still
an
in
L bar.
operation? Really? Wow.
Yeah.
It just goes to
Intellectual,
show. Yeah, because it's a shame, really, because if you go as far as back as deep time, which is what biblical times, and even back before that, everything they saw was wrote down. So without literature and books and all the rest of it,
Now. It's
that's
shifted.
yeah,
It's all
and that's
shifted.
why the importance of books should remain, or even more. Now,
I
so
think they
don't
will.
you think?
I'm
That's
not
coming from
do-
someone that can't even. That's
I'm not
dyslexic.
doom and gloom about it. The thing with what happened with Kindle and Amazon, all these people, is you have the availability now of publishing yourself. Vanity publishing, if you remember what that was years ago, you went to a printer with your manuscript and they printed your book. And to get it viable, you had to print, I don't know, 300-400 of these books. And people all over the country had garages full of their own books because nobody bought them.
Nobody wanted them.
Now, you just, you write it on Word processor, you ping it off to Amazon, it costs you nothing. You send off the first book, let people read it for very little, and then you continue writing and charge a little more. So for new writers, it's a completely new avenue to get published, which didn't exist before, which I didn't even see as a possibility. So writing is continuing, books are continuing. It's morphed a bit, it's changed a bit, but thank God, I think creative people now have, if anything, now have more of an avenue to start.
But this again leads us on to why we've done True podcasts with MK and Benny Whipson and Simon Akim. We've got a great team. It's all about staying ahead of the curve and adding new skills to what we're already doing, because you can't stay in that whirlpool forever and expecting it to work, because it's like the world moves on and you've got to keep keep adapting. Yeah. And when I stumbled across people like Beta Squad and all these other YouTubers, it's a skill. It's not just you just go for it. You've got to have a team for one and a direction, but then you've got to have purpose behind what you're doing. You know what I mean? The purpose behind this is.
MK Cypher Films is an independent production company based in Enfield, London, UK. We produce documentaries, short feature films, social media videos, and provide photography studio space for weddings, christenings, and corporate videos.
It's got to have a structure, hasn't it?
To get different sorts of people on from all walks of life, and to get their story out there, and to get them, again, self publicity really. Any publicity is good publicity, I found. So if I can, it
doesn't work at all.
But like you say, in that world, you meet people that you wouldn't necessarily meet, and they're the kind of people that I want to get on this show.
I think what you've got to explain to people about extra work is that it's linear. So you start.
Please explain.
You start as an essay, and you end as an essay.
Yeah.
There's a ladder, and the ladder's on the floor. So there's no climbing a ladder. You can't be a better essay. All of us as essays have been background, middle ground, foreground, very occasionally featured. You get featured. Sometimes you get a Winnebago. You get sat in a trailer. You get treated like a god. And 2 days later, you're in a puddle at the back of Leavesden, so far away from the camera, you're in another county. So that's the game. That kind of attracted me, because having worked for myself for all those years, and it stays in your head 7 days a week, I needed something where I didn't have to think. So I arrive at a film set, I sign in, and from that point, somebody tells me what to do. You go to makeup, you go to costume, you get put on a set, you get told what to do. And if I was 18, I would loathe it because I don't want to be told what to do. At my point in life, I'm perfectly happy to go there, do what I'm told to do, rap when I'm rapped, and get paid with luck. Right?
Oh, don't even get me started on that one.
Yeah, exactly. That attracted me, and also the fact that it's a level playing field is, with the exception of the idiots who dive for the camera because they want to be stars, which never happens.
We was talking about that in the car park. Yeah.
With the exception of those, there's no point in pushing another extra out of the way to get there, because it doesn't work. We're all the same, and I like that. There's no fight to the top.
Well, I was on. I'll choose my words. I don't want to drop anyone in on this. I was on a production, Belgrave, I'll say that, and there was a certain guy. Let's just say that I knew I wasn't going to get on with him. Do you know what I mean? So I thought, okay, yeah. And the main cast was French. She was a French woman. I could probably just remember how to say yes, much more than anything else. So I wasn't gonna sit down and waffle on in French just to try and impress a lead actress. But he did. Oh yeah, he was waffling away in French and even pushed me out the way so we could carry on the conversation. I thought, well, okay, if that's important to you, happily stand there. But I was put there for a reason. But that's fine. That's neither here nor by. And of course, when action came, he was moved, and he just wasn't happy. And I thought, well, one, you are what I am. So I don't know why you're trying to impress people with a conversation in French, because really, just seen as a I'm not going to say it.
Extras are the least open to being impressed by any other extra at all.
All she wants to do is say lines and then quickly get wrapped so she can go home, not to have a conversation with their saying French. It doesn't really wash. And I just looked at these people and thinking, I hope I never come across in that way as enough to say, "Ooh, well, look at me." Because that's not what I'm here for, and that's not why.
It's very difficult to make your own luck, isn't it?
Yeah, but if you don't make your own luck, no one's going to make it for you, especially coming through in the SA world. Because I've learned quickly that a lot of people just don't respect the actors that have come through the SA route, and I get that. But when it happens, like Fantastic Beasts happened for me, and a few other big productions, you think, okay, I haven't sold my dignity for nothing. And there was something that Richard Hammond says on a podcast with, I can't remember his name now, Diary of a CEO, can't remember his name. He's on Dragon's Den, can't remember his name. And he said something that resonated with me. He says, because he always wanted to be famous, and so did I. If anyone who knows me, I always wanted to be famous, but for the wrong reasons. So I can say, oh, well, look at me. Look at what suit I'm wearing, or look at what car I'm driving. But now I'm on the road, or hopefully on the road to there. It's changed from, the one's still there, more than anything, but for other reasons. Like, I help a charity over in Romania that helps street dogs and gives them a second chance at life. I'd love to go over there and be able to build whatever they need without missing the money, and go to my sister and say, there's your mortgage, go and pay it off without missing the money. Yeah, well, when you can do that, that's when you've made it.
Yeah. Listen, fame for fame's sake is ridiculous. It's a potty concept.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to be a means to an end. But don't you think that's what
TikTok and Instagram and all that's pushing on younger people is? You've got to look a certain way to be able to do a certain thing, and it's not that at all. Because if it was, everyone would be doing this, and it's not as easy as I found out to host a show, to keep engaging in the show, but to keep it interesting. As long as you've got the right guests to have on, it happens. But if you haven't, it's not as easy as what it looks. Same as the archery.
essay work for the majority of essays. First of all, it's not for everyone. It's 80% hanging around. all the cliches are true about essay work. You spend most of your time doing very little, and then you get on set. And I think, maybe 80% of essays never want to be anything but other than essays. They are not interested in the fame. They just like the process. They've found an avenue to fill their time. They're invested, but they're not. It's not all. I mean, essay work certainly isn't the fastest route or the best route for an actor. It's a great way of learning the business. You learn the technical part of the business. You can network. You get to know ADs. You get to know camera people, whatever. But it's a tough route to take for an actor. It happens. It happens
it's happened
for a few, but you have to. It's a tough route.
But like you say, you could be like I spent all movie on the man who fell to earth as a stand-in, which learnt me a hell of a lot because I got all access to Jimmy Simpson, who was a great guy. I've done a few Marvels of a stand-in. I was a character on Fantastic Beasts 3. So when it all happened for me, I thought, yeah, I've made it. And then whoops.
Yep.
For like for a whole year,
Snakes and ladders.
it was like real. I had a week on Outlaws with Stephen Merchant, which was hilarious. What a great guy. And then I had a few weeks on Rivals, but it was very sporadic. Like I thought that was it. You know, I was there, I was doing it, and then like, hello, where's everyone gone?
Yeah, nothing's pinging here.
So for the essay work, where did it start for you, and how did it start for you?
I did do essay work many years. In fact, when I was a kid, I used to go to Elstree and bunk into the studios there and do the clapperboards thing. So it's always been kind of a thing for me. I've always loved studios.
Was you living close to the studios?
Not far from Elstree. I could cycle to. I lived in near Hendon, so I'd cycle up the A1. They used to make The Saint and Danger Man and these black and white ATV series. So it was always a thing. And then I worked. Is that
where they were filmed?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, all North London. Yeah, Bournemouth.
Yeah. Wow.
Then I did a bit, in my early 20s, and then kids came along and life came along and the bookshop got busier and I didn't really have the time. And then I really, when I got rid of the bookshop, I went into it full time, expecting.
And what age was you when
65.
you went to? Really? Yeah. See,
you started pretty. See, it's never too late.
I've always said that age is just whatever you want. A label. You are who you are, and
yeah, it's a label. If you wake up like I wake up and you can't get out of there. No, that's when I went into full time, and I had no thought. I thought if I can get a day here and a day here, it would be fun. And I knew about the process because I did it way back before, when it was Central Casting. It was just one casting agency.
Wow. So who was your go-to agent at the time of starting?
I think they were called Central Casting, I think.
Is that the only one?
Remember, it's so long ago.
Yeah. Do you know, a lot of people ask me, well, why can't you remember when?
Yeah,
when
it sounds arrogant,
and it doesn't mean we don't mean it in that way.
The first guy I ever met on a set, I asked him what he'd done the week, how many, and he'd worked a lot, and he said, well, I did this big film last week in Shepperton, and I really, honestly, I couldn't tell you what I did before, and I thought, God, you're full of yourself, aren't you?
And
you
that's what I get that,
and we know what that means.
But I don't say it as in mean it that way because I'm not saying it intended to mean that.
Big I am. You
so
just can't remember.
When I say it, and I, especially on social media, because you're not actually saying it, you're just typing it, so people think you're being arrogant. Do you know what I mean?
That's why I started writing this stuff down, because I did so many one-day jobs here and one-day jobs there, and they all melt into each other. So I wanted to write little stories that would differentiate each job, so I'd remember them. And it started in lockdown because none of us were working. So that's when I started.
See, that's when, for me, that's when it all took off.
It ended for some and started
crazy.
for some.
I had Fantastic Beasts, I had Game of Thrones, all like 5-6 months bookings, big bookings, and it was crazy. And then about 2023, strikes hit, and ever since then it's been very like, where's this avalanche that was work that was going to happen? That never came.
The big push never happened, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure where the level of the industry is going to fall now. It's not going to be. I don't think it's going to be as good as it was.
What do you think that's down to? Technology, or is
No,
it just the way the industry's going?
I think it's the big productions, which are obviously mainly American, are consolidating. And I think there are too many streamers out there. We all know that.
But the amount of money that's been pumped into these new studios, they must know something that we don't.
Listen, a studio, I think Leavesden cost 500 million quid to build. Sounds like a lot of money. What does a big film cost?
Yeah.
500 million quid. Yeah. It's just the cost of one film.
Look how many of the films we've got going on at any one time.
And they get dumped. So they can dump Leeds, they can dump Shepperton, they can dump Pinewood. They've already stopped building a big studio near here that was near Enfield, that has Starlight or something studio that was started. But it's now just level ground. So that's not going to do it. Just because the studios are there, they're not going to fill it. I think it will reach a good level. And Britain is still a good place to make films. I think we're going to look back at 5 years ago as the golden days for extras.
I'm glad, because I was approaching 40. I didn't know what I was going to do or where I was going to go or anything like that. And they say life begins at 40. Well, mine did. It really took off at 40. But when I did start, your name and a guy called Grant Crooks was two names that kept popping up. And I got to know Grant really well, as we're now friends. But I never got the chance to meet you until obviously the podcast today. But you seem to have a hell of a lot of pull in or presence in what you say.
Absolutely none.
Well, a lot of people take notice of what you say. The essays, ADs, casting agencies as well. And I can count probably on one finger how many casting agencies have rang me about my posts. Normally, it's about what I've said in a or got myself into trouble, not in a derogatory way, but in a way that I should have not said anything. But with you, it's like a lot of people have got so many questions, and you're Peter Bergman, the famous Peter Bergman that people go to
let me tell you
a bit
something,
of wisdom.
Paul.
Well,
I'm a reasonably pleasant enough guy, and I never had an enemy until I started writing on social media. And then these people came out of the woodwork. I'm not the only one. Yeah. It is a double-edged sword. Firstly, that these people assume that because I have a platform, people are interested in what I write. They assume it helps me in the business. Hasn't, as far as I can get, not a jot. I worked as much before I wrote.
I thought AD was a big clambering to get you
absolute garbage. I know a few ADs.
Not only the way you are, but your look.
My look.
You can near enough fit into if anything, I showed my father yesterday because when I said Peter Bergman, I was trying to Google you before I came on.
MK Cypher Films is an independent production company based in Enfield, London, UK. We produce documentaries, short feature films, social media videos, and provide photography studio space for weddings, christenings, and corporate videos.
And I was staggered that there weren't much. There was a Peter Bergman, who was a famous actor from the 60s.
I'll tell you what to Google, because you're going up the wrong avenue, that's why. But the whole point of my trolls who think I work quite a lot, but that's to do with my demographic, which is small. They're not that many old people. My tash, because there was an awful lot of period work.
Yeah. And
the fact that in this game, the more you work, the more you work.
Yeah.
And I've been in the game enough. I've paid my dues, and agents and ADs, casting ADs, take the line of least resistance. So they tend, if they look at a page of pictures, they're going to tend, if they know it's close work, to pick the guy that they know didn't frighten the horses on the last production. Do you know what I mean? So It's familiarity.
Direction.
It's not favoritism, it's familiarity. But my trolls think because I write about ADs and I write about the business that I'm sucking up and I'm working all the time, which I am not. I'm privileged, thank God, to work as much at my time of life as I want to. I get enough work. 2 or 3 days a week, if I can get it, is perfection for me. When the strike happened, like everybody else, work was hard to find. It's not come back to what it was.
No, it hasn't.
But the whole social media profile has not brought me anything but pain. Not real pain. No, I'm joking. But it's brought me. All it is people are very kind, and I get to a holding area, and people say, "I love reading your stuff," which is lovely to hear. Apart from that, it has had no benefit, and I didn't expect it to, and I didn't write it for that reason. But it's fun. It's fun, and the reason I think people like it, and also the reason people say you've got to write a book, I don't think.
You've got to write a book.
No,
surely.
I don't think what I write travels. I think it travels within the extra community. I don't know that there's enough of the extra community who would bother to buy a book. Maybe they would, maybe they wouldn't. I'm too lazy to bother, to be honest. But that's the dynamic. It's what I write. If you put it out to the general public, they're going to be a little either confused or a little wary of it, or they assume wrongly that it's the glamour profession, and we know it isn't.
I was just going to say we know different. For me, it's for what you write. I can relate to it. A lot of people can fully relate to.
I write about the silver urn, the tea urn, which is the single most important focus of any film. Is the tea urn. And the coffee
and the coffee and everything else that goes with that table. It's like a sacred part of set. So we've covered where Peter Bergman grew up and the bookshop and where you started essay work. What my next question for you is: who is Peter Bergman?
Who am I?
Yeah,
I'm lovely. I'm such a nice guy.
The people that I've spoke to have all said that you're humble, which comes across as soon as you start talking to you.
But what have I not got to be humble about that?
A lot of people can write you a list nowadays.
Yeah, it's all very sweet. I mean, I like likes. Anyone who writes on social media, it's nice to get likes. It doesn't affect me.
Amen.
If I get 10 people who like it, or 1,000. I write on a couple of other websites which are huge. We've got huge people that are invested in it, and I get thousands of likes. It sounds like it's I'm saying it for effect, but it doesn't bother me because it has no effect for me. I'm not getting money for clicks. It's of no interest to me. If 10 people like it, then fine. If nobody likes it, then I stop writing. The trolls control. I mean, it comes with the territory, as you know. As soon as you put your head over the parapet, people will fight at you. Trolls don't bother me, as I told you before. It's what they represent.
See, that's a skill. That's a skill in itself because
they don't bother me. I'm too old. What the hell? Why should I get bothered by virtual people? The same with the likes. I love them. They're very nice, but they're virtual. There's nothing you can grab onto. No. They're not tangible things. So why get upset? But I do get upset because I've got 2 daughters who were trolled when they were much younger, and it destroys people. Yeah. People who are vulnerable.
Not everyone's the same.
I've had suicides in my family that have been initiated by trolls on social media, and that stays with you.
Well, that's a completely different. That's a completely different level.
And people, ignore them and this, that, and the other. Well, of course, I can ignore them, but they're little schoolyard bullies that don't know how fundamental the damage is that they do, and the whole thing about mental health has been exacerbated by social media because people are not trained to cope.
I was going to say, do you think that the human brain is ready for the way technology and how fast technology
I think we
is
need
moving?
to be educated.
Because I think it's doing a lot more. I mean, obviously it was doing a lot more good, and I think that line has now been crossed into it's going too fast for us to comprehend, like 5G, AI, virtual reality. It's going to come to a point where, like you say, it's the human brain is not capable of
I don't think that's an issue.
processing the bombardment 24/7 of.
Well, kids are very
Pictures,
adaptable.
likes and this,
Kids
that,
can
and the other.
take it. I can take it less. This whole, 5-second click, 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 click. You got to have something else. Is something I find irritating. But kids can take it. The major problem with social media is the massive misinformation, and where do you go for verified stuff? And that's what's dangerous. And TikTok. And the algorithms that work with TikTok, as you must know, is if you're looking at stuff about Trump, you are then bombarded with stuff about Trump.
But that's what I mean. Like,
But it's
people
skewed.
are not understanding
Yeah.
the way the technology is working. They are just posting stuff without realising.
Everything has an
there's-
effect. It's
yeah.
cause and effect. Everything.
But that ripple is not really seen until it's bombardment of clips, of ad bombs, of products, of clips, of false information. I'm going to sound like Trump now, of false news, and you don't know which is right from wrong. And that's what I was talking about earlier on, is a lot of people nowadays are going to podcasts and people like this to not only to get the right information, but to get more of a raw sense of the truth. And then in between, use your own intellect and then come to your own, which is sort of, again, that's been taken away from people. I get called, labelled bigots. I get called an idiot. And doing this podcast, I'm going to open my world up to a lot more trolls. And that's fine, That's their opinion. Whether it's holds IQ or not, that's your opinion. I'm not going to take it away from
Listen,
you.
you got to read the room.
But some things I've got to just not react.
Yeah.
And like you say, that's a skill. And that's what I was saying to earlier on. That's a skill where I haven't mastered because I still bite. I still react, and I shouldn't do. That's their,
Listen,
you get idiots
there have
everywhere you
been
go.
There's been a couple of
Yeah.
personal messages I've had that have been, borderline actionable. I had a guy say, if I ever meet you in a holding area, I'll give you a slap. I mean, and I'm writing stupid little innocuous stories, and you get somebody like that. But they've got issues. The issues are with them; they're not with me.
Amen.
And I'm not going to legislate. I'm not going to react for somebody who's got issues. I mean, they need help. If they actually understand. I mean, and I had somebody write in, you're very lucky you're doing this and you're working all the time, and the game we're in is so ridiculous. I mean, extra work is so potty. The story that illustrates extra work, which will illustrate people who think it's an avenue for glory. I got a job on a period thing in Hatfield House, and it was Victorian 3-piece suits, lots of
So you look perfect.
hairs, the top hat, the whole thing.
Perfect.
I look gorgeous.
I bet you did.
I look absolutely stunning.
Someone like
In fact,
Christmas Carol.
costume said I look stunning. Everybody said I look wonderful. Right. So I'm preening myself. So we get to Hatfield House, and it's and just the costume fitting was like 3 or 4 hours. Makeup was an hour. So we get to Hatfield House. We get this big corridor. I'm stood next to the principals on this film. It's a long room, and I'm preening. I'm going to be on camera. Any SA who says he hates being on camera, I don't do the job to be on camera. It's a load of pack of bollocks. It is, honestly, all of us are quite fond of being on camera. We don't go for the camera. You don't do that. If you're lucky enough to be on camera, be on TV, be on a film, it's nice. It's kind of what we do it for, but not. it's not our motivation. It's just fun.
If you think about it, normally when we're on set, there's about, I mean, me and Benny were on, I'm not going to say what it was, but it was on a huge production over the weekend, a few weekends ago. And I think he had 10 cameras. 8 to 10 cameras. So you are going to be on camera. You are going to be seen. Whether they use the clip or not, it's completely different aspects. But you are going to be on camera, so don't worry about that. Just do as you're told. Follow directions. It amazes me how many people will do an action and then they'll go, yeah, can we reset? So you reset back to where you started. And the idea of saying, can you please do what you just did? What was that then?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Exactly
what did I do? Wait, surely you know, you just done it.
Well, let me finish this ridiculous story. So I'm stood next to the principal, top hat, blah, blah, blah. AD comes over, assistant director, if you don't know what an AD is, comes over and says, would you mind following me? So I follow this AD all the way down this long corridor, past the cameras, past the monitors.
Oh dear.
And where the runners are, and where, you know, people are starting to set up sandwiches. And the AD's listening to his earpiece and going, yeah, could you just stand there, chill up right a bit, left a bit. And I'm saying to him, you do know I'm behind the camera, don't you? He said, yeah, don't worry. So I stand there and they do a take and then they do another take and I'm bored. I'm standing there, you know.
And this is behind the cameras?
It's way behind the cameras. Cameras are pointing in another direction. So we do about 5 takes and I say to one AD, can't I go back to holding? What, mate? No, you've got to stay there. So I'm thinking maybe they're going to bring me on or something.
MK Cypher Films is an independent production company based in Enfield, London, UK. We produce documentaries, short feature films, social media videos, and provide photography studio space for weddings, christenings, and corporate videos.
Eyeline.
They finished the rolling set thing, and we're released off to holding. And I say to the AD, okay, what was that all about? And he said, right, the thing was, there's a light that's reflecting off that mirror and your top hat asking beautifully. That was like 3 days of costume makeup. And that was all I did in that film. Stood off set, masking and that's essay work.
Would you know, on the flip side to that, I was asked to go for a COVID test at Warner Brothers. And I went for a COVID test. And I'd never been to Warner Brothers before. And I was a huge Roger Rabbit fan. So I was expecting to see cartoon characters running about all over the place.
Yeah, huge.
So I'd whipped my phone out and I was like, look at me, Mr. Billy Big Bollocks here. And bumped into David Yates. Now, for those who don't know who David Yates is, he's the director of Fantastic Beasts. Doesn't really look all that
imposing.
No. And he's really soft-spoken, much like yourself. And he was like, can you please put your phone away? I thought, oh, bollocks. Fuck it, I want to get the phone. I've only just got here. So I put my phone away. And he's like, what are you doing to look a bit lost? I said, I'm looking for, Vermilion was the code name. And he's looking for a name. He's like, follow me. Oh, fuck yeah, so I was panicking. So anyway, it led me to this this trailer. And I took my COVID test. And he says, can you just please wait outside and I'll show you into a cubicle. And I thought, oh, wow. They're going to check my phone. That's what was going through my head. Delete. And I was sat in this cubicle for ages and my name was bouncing around these radios. I thought, what on earth have I done? And I'd been there, bought me food because it was in these little cubicles. And again, my name was bouncing around these radios. And there was a knock at the door. So I opened it and it was David. He says, have you eaten? I says, yeah, I've eaten. I said, can I ask what's going on? He went, I do apologise. He says, you could be used as a character. I said, oh, wow, okay. Oh, wow. I was getting a bit excited here now. He says, but we'll come and get you. Anyway, hours passed. And it got dark at this point. Anyway, he come and got me. And he says, we need to take you to set. So it took me to set. And he said, I said, what film is it? And he says, have you heard of Fantastic Beasts? I said, no. oh, he says, have you heard of Grindelwald? Never heard of him. He said, wow. He went, Harry Potter. And that was it. My jaw dropped. I was like, what? And he says, one of the bodyguards has dropped out for whatever reason. This is with a haircut. You could, perfect.
That's the game.
He says, but can you do a stunt? We need you to fall down some stairs. Yeah. Now I'd expecting a staircase, so this is going to hurt. And it was just 3 big steps, and I had to do it. He said, you'll have pads and all that. I said, don't need pads. I'll do without the pads. He was like, right, no. We'll have a full stunt team there. And so I did it. And he come round, them crane, come round the back of there doing this, and says, can you do it this way and that way? Yeah. And I did it. And me and this other guy, and he was like, yeah, well, I'll see you Monday. And that was as crazy as it sounds, that was how Fantastic Beasts happened for me. And that's what catapulted.
Yeah, it can happen in things.
But like I say, that.
But you can have a career 20 years in it, doesn't it?
And then I done that for 21, 22, 23, 2 years. And then boom, strikes. Since last November, that was it. Yeah. Without parachutes.
Yeah.
And I was praying on what to do next. And much like yourself, you've got to be pretty much open with whatever life throws at you.
I tell you a funny story about that, and it indicates how things can go wrong for people. I did a crowd scene on a film called Munich, and it was filmed in Elstree, and the scene was a Downing Street.
So
scene.
I've always thought it's only at EastEnders that get filmed.
No. The main Elstree studios across the road is not affiliated with the BBC studios, which is on the other side of the road.
Right, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So the scene is at Downing Street in just before the war, and Neville Chamberlain is going to see Hitler. And Neville Chamberlain is played by Jeremy Irons. And he's coming out of Downing Street, and he's getting in a car, and he's driving off. And we, the extras, are the crowd waving him off. Good luck with Mr. Hitler. Right? So we're in, we're a crowd. Now I'm 5'9", so there are a lot of people taller than me. So I'm put near the front with a tash and a bowler hat and whatever.
As usual.
Behind me, 3 or 4 guys behind me, are 2 guys who I've known for a long time, and they're wannabes. They got to be on camera.
Camera huggers.
They've got a big camera. They're known for it, and not in a good way. They just pain
Don't
in
you
the
find
arse.
that cringe?
Yeah,
like,
grow up.
Yep.
So I'm at the front of the crowd. They're in the middle of the crowd. Neville Chamberlain comes out of Downing Street, gets in his car, and these guys push forward.
Oh dear.
And they push, and I'm at the front, and somebody whams me in the back, and I land on the car window. So I land on the car window, and there's Jeremy Irons looking at me. So I'm going, all right, Jeremy, Mr. Chamberlain. And I step back, and the wise guys who pushed before said, you're in big trouble now, mate. The AD's coming over. So this AD rushes over, comes over to me, goes, fantastic. Do that on the next tape. They're going to put a camera in the car so that we see Jeremy Irons' reaction to you. Brilliant. And then we're going to mic you up to hear what you're saying. And these guys behind going, oh, for fuck's sake.
Brilliant. You know what? Brilliant.
Loved it. So thank you, guys. And I got a creative reaction. I got extra money. It. Thank you.
Win-win situation.
Yeah. And made the cut as well.
Did you? Yeah. See, that's another thing that these people who try and find the camera don't understand is even if you find the camera, like I was on this production with 8 to 10 cameras, you're on camera, whether they use it or not, completely different aspects.
Yeah, but which camera?
Yeah, which camera? Yeah.
See, people dive for the big camera. There's a little one on a wire going down.
That's probably going to get used.
When I did the second Fantastic Beasts in Leavesden, and I was on a bridge in Paris selling birds. It was one of those markets and selling birds. And the 2 principals walked past me, but you don't see me because there's a big boom camera following them behind.
Okay.
So I know I'm not on camera. Maybe my shoulder will be. And the director said, call that kid across when they get about level with you so that they cross in front of them. So it's a nice dynamic for the film. That was my function.
Okay.
So yeah, fine. So I call the kids across and they come across. And, you know, and that was my, I'd done loads.
Was that kept in?
Well, this is the story. I'm kind of standing back, waiting for action to happen, picking my nose, scratching my head. Nothing's happening. You know, I'm not on camera. What I didn't know was behind the stalls on the other side of the little street was a camera on a wire going along.
Oh no!
So luckily, it missed me picking my nose, but I'm standing there like, you know, like twerp of the year, and it was on the poster. It was on one of the posters, me in this stupid face with the principal.
At least you wasn't picking your nose.
At least I wasn't picking
my nose.
so be warned, it's not always the camera you think.
And that's what I've always told myself. No matter how bored you are, how pissed off you are, you've just got to keep it together, and just get through the day. You know, especially on big crowd days when there's going to be a couple of Robert De Niro wannabes. You know, that always think they're better than everyone else. Yeah. But my famous saying is in for a penny, in for a pound, in for a penny, in for a pound, which basically means if you can ask to do something, yeah, of course I can. So
volunteer. We
was asked to do some, or if anyone could do archery, and I've never done it before in my life. But yeah, I said, remember Robin Hood? I said, he got shit on me. I said, I'm that good. Right, okay, put it down on the list. So I did. Anyway. Guy sitting next to me, he was like, you can't do that. So, cut long story short, was lining up, and the order to put the arrow into the bow was knock. So he was giving the instruction. I thought, you know what's coming here, don't you? So the instructor shouted, right then, knock. No one, who's there? So, but I could tell he wanted to laugh, and he's just come up to me, and I was wearing this stupid white coat, and he was like, I really hope you're good. I said, you remember Robin Hood? He got shit on me. So he said, right then. So he's walked a bit further down. He's turned back to me and he's gone, right, looked at me. And he's gone, knock. And I've not said anything this time. And I've put the arrow into the thing. And then boing, it's gone over the fence, back and beyond. Anyway, he's come over to me. He's like, I don't think archery is for you, do you? And I was like, in for a penny, in for a pound. Yeah. And he went, fuck off and you go and join the march.
You might go away with it. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't.
But I put my name down, just thought I'd be getting money, but it wasn't the case. So that was that. But so we've covered most of your journey. So what is it now for Peter Bergman? What's the?
Do you know what? I'm happy. I'm happy. I mean, the joy of it. The joy of standing in puddles in the pouring rain. Now, the joy of this game is that every job is different. Everything you do is different. I'm very lucky that at my time of life I'm doing anything really. Well, lucky I'm alive really, but it's I don't quite know. If you try and sell extra work, which I would never do. It's never what people think it is. Yeah. You've got to do it to understand it. Yeah. And
don't do it for the money.
A lot of times I've
Excuse me.
Wondered about my life choices. Should I be here in winter in summer clothes?
I've just said I've often questioned my own sanity. I said, but it is what it is.
But you've got to love it. You've got to love the process. You've got to love
the environment. But that's
what
I'm to doing this.
Yeah.
And I never thought I'd be given the chance by MK to do this, but he's telling me to wrap up now. So, yeah, I'm afraid that's an hour gone.
Too much,
and I could do a lot longer with Peter Bergman, but yeah, hopefully we can get a part 2. It depends how busy the guy is, but thank you, Peter.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure for us as well. So that's True Podcasts with Peter Bergman.